So back on the Master of Organic Gardening course that we've been doing with the National Lottery. So here's some more information about making that compost that you get from your garden into something that's usable as a multi-purpose compost, like you would get from, for example, if you went to the supermarket or if you went to the garden centre to buy compost. Now, you can also use this method if you've bought some very cheap compost. So like, let's say you've gone to the supermarket and brought grow bags, which is a very, very cheap form of compost. How to actually lift it up in value and to the same quality that you would get from an expensive bag of compost that you would buy from the garden centre. And so really there's two methods that you do to do that, and we're going to do that with the compost that we've refined from what we've got out of our own compost heap here at Roots to Fruit Midlands Limited. So we've refined the grass cuttings and leaf mould, which is this stuff here, and the way that we refined it was that we sieved it. And I've done an entire wheelbarrow full, which is between 70 and 90 litres. And what you need to look on average, that when you get the compost out of your garden, if you've made your own heap, is that when you do come to sieve it, on average, you will, depending on how old the compost is, obviously it's quite young, ours is only a year old, on average you're going to be losing about 25% of it to sort of rough stuff. But like I said in the previous video, do not throw that away. Put it back on your compost heap because it is charged with the bacteria, and the microorganisms and the microsoma or the fungi spores that will help you make your next load of compost and really speed that up. So it's really good stuff for that. So we've taken this compost here and we've refined it and we've put it through a sieve. So really, essentially, that's the first thing that you get with expensive compost is what type of sieve has it been put through. And actually, everybody thinks that it's done at like a different compost plant. So if you took something like Levington or Fison's compared to Asda's own, or compared to sort of what you might get in one of the supermarket type compost, the difference is that it's the same compost, but there would be an initial fine sieve that the Levington and the Fison's would go through, and then it would go through a coarser sieve, and that would be the difference between the compost. And also Levington's or Fison's or an expensive brand of compost would then put the additives in, and the additives really are pennies. So what it is that because we've done, remember, an entire wheelbarrow full of compost, which is between 70 and 80 litres, whatever you put in as additives, it's a cupful. So like a baking cup. And so all that we're going to add to make this into a really nice compost is I'm going to put some fish blood and bone, which is a general fertiliser, as a powder, and I'm going to put some garden lime, and this one's very fine, sort of really churned up. They've really ground it up fine to a real dust, which is a garden lime, not a hydrated lime, which is what you would use in a building situation with bricklaying or something like that. But it's a crushed stone lime, and that will be for the soil pH. So it'll be slightly acidic because we've had leaves and bits of conifer and branches go in there. And obviously this one here is a balanced fertiliser. It's got a balance of nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium or potash. And what that means is that all of those different nutrients that we put in, which is called NPK, will help all parts of the plant to grow, whether that be the roots, stems, the leaves, the flowers and the fruit. It's all there in this powder form of fish blood and bone. And what we're going to do is going to sprinkle it on evenly, mix it in, and then re-sieve it again, because sieving is not just about getting rid of the lumps, but sieving is about helping to mix the compost so that we don't get pockets of this stuff in one area, and it will mix it all together. And then as the water starts to dissolve both the lime and the fish blood and bone, what we will find is that it will then become available to the plant in the form of a liquid, so it will turn into a solution, and that's how we use it. But that takes a little bit of time. So when you come to put plants in this, when you start to water it more and more, the compost will make these nutrients available. And don't forget, we do what we call the smudge test. So that's where you take a bit of the compost and squeeze it between your fingers, like so. And we're looking at what's on there, which is humus, which is a carbon that is in the form of like a jelly. that's got all of the minerals that bind together. That's got loads of nitrogen. Now nitrogen is great for plants to be able to develop their roots and stems. It's what gets the plant going. So probably the most important nutrient that they have. But we can see because of that smudge test, we've got that nice black smear that's there like that. That's got loads of nitrogen in it, and it's pretty available already for the plant when we start to put different seedlings, or whether you're going to pot up stuff in it. And so you can do this with veg plants, you can do this with hanging baskets, you can do it for your tubs and containers, or you can use it as a real good mulch for your veg patch if you want stuff to really bulk up, get bigger and get more fruit, flowers or foliage or roots on it. So the first thing to do is to basically is to sprinkle it over and try and get it over as evenly as possible. Yeah, so it's all a little bit like colouring in. So can you see how I've done that? I've got it nice and evenly there. And then the same with the lime. So I'll try and work my way around the whole thing and get it in nice and evenly, like so. And so it's a bit like colouring in, get into the corners there as well. And then the next thing to do is I'll just get a fork and I'll fork it in, you know, a bit like you would do the top dressing. So I'm trying to get it, you can still see that within that forking that there are pockets of the stuff. So don't worry about that. Don't feel like you've got to really try and get it all the same colour like you were mixing cement. Because with mixing compost, which is different to mixing cement, you're going to find that the sieve will do the job of getting it nice and even for you. Yeah, so all I'm doing is I'm just going right to the bottom, piling it up into the middle. I'm trying not to spill any on the floor because this stuff's precious now, isn't it? A, it's taken you a year to make. B, you've spent all of this time sieving it and refining it and loving it and caring it, so we don't want to waste any on the floor. And so this is really great stuff for most of your different types of plants that you want to grow. It's what we would term as a multi-purpose compost. And so what we'll do is now, in order to get this ready, we're going to then now sieve it to get, so you can still see there's pockets of bits of chalk and fertiliser that's in there. And basically what we've got the option of doing is making this so that it's evenly distributed throughout all of the compost. And so in order to do that, we do some sieving. And again, you can choose two different sieves for this. If you were going to do this for really fine plants like seedlings or plugs, you can get quite a fine sieve like that. And these sieves, you can buy them as metal or you can buy them as plastic. I mean, the plastic ones, they last quite a long time and they're quite reasonably priced. Obviously the metal ones tend to be, you know, something that's lasts a lot longer, and obviously if you're not really happy about using plastic, that can be a little bit of a problem with it. But again, we've got plenty of plastic ones and they work okay. They just can get a bit brittle. And so what I'll do is I've got myself a scoop here. I'm going to start sieving it in there and getting that through and trying to get a nice even coating or coverage. And even though we've already sieved it once, it's amazing how there's still some bits that are left over that are in there. But don't worry if you've got any bits that are left over. So I can see it there. Always give it a bit of a squeeze through like that with your hand. You might want to put a glove on, especially if that's metal, in case you scratch your hands. But hold on to that stuff, put it back on the compost heap, because that is really good stuff. So I can see now that this stuff is starting to go really nicely and become like one colour rather than sort of these pockets of bits of white. Now this is a much finer sieve, so I'm going to have a go with that. So with the finer sieve you very often get stuff that's left over, and obviously you'll get things like twigs and branches. They take a long time to break down. So it's a matter now of going through that whole section there to basically get to the point whereby we've got a nice pile of this sieved soil. So all of it's been done and it's all mixed in nicely, and you can see the granular things that we've added to it. They will cost pennies, so you can go to the hardware store and buy those in boxes. They're quite relatively cheap, and it's what's made really double the price of a very cheap form of compost. And so the other thing just to remember is that this is always important. You might want to add things like wood ash in there, not coal ash because that's got a lot of acid in it, but you could add wood ash in there as well. And a lot of people say, well, how much do I add? So this is the tip. this is the thing, this is the recipe. For every 70 to 90 litres of compost that you sieve, make sure that you put a cup of lime and like a baker's cup or a mug even, a cup of fish blood and bone or dried fertiliser, and you can also add a cup of ash if you wanted to, and that pushes your compost up to a really expensive one. You then mix it in with a fork, and then you re-sieve it again, and that mixes it all the way through, and that's how you make this beautiful, lush, amazingly great growing medium, which is your own compost, which has been you've turned it into something that's really valuable and useful. Or you might have got a cheap supermarket bag, a grow bag or something like that, and you wanted to give it a little bit of extra depth and make it like an expensive version of the compost. Then it's those additives that you've put in and that sieving process that you go through is what will improve it and take it beyond what you've actually paid for it and almost double it in price. So good luck with sieving and getting your refined compost ready to use in the garden, and you'll really see the difference in the plants that you put in it.